Welcome to the podcast. We do recover with Jared Miller, your host.
And I'm Dr. Terry Sellers, your co-host.
This is a podcast about recovery from addiction.
We want to talk about what successful recovery can look like.
Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn.
All right, 107 is underway. Today in studio, I have Ty Hirsche, our guest. Ty, how are you doing?
Cy.
Yeah. Sorry. Cy.
It's all good.
Cy Hirsche.
Right before the podcast came on, we were talking about a guy named Ty, so that's
We
why
were.
we did it.
Yeah. How grateful we were for his 2-year sponsorship.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, obviously, I'm also joined. Should we do this old school?
No.
I'm obviously also joined by the man, the myth, the legend, the doc, Terry Sellers.
Whoa.
He's munching on some Cool Ranch Doritos, though. I don't know. I might vomit by the end of this thing. And then we have Sean Denovan, our tech titan. Remember those old days? We were a little cheesy, but we were having fun with it.
Yeah.
Right?
We're still
Couple
going.
goofballs.
We're still going.
Hey, episode 107.
Sean's supposed to say, "Hello, I push the buttons," or something like that.
I pushed the button.
Yeah, that's what he does.
Man, I feel like I'm having deja vu. I love it.
I got to cue him.
Enjoying it.
Yeah.
So episode 107 is brought to us by Rise Up Supplements. Rise Up Supplements is a nootropic line aimed at optimizing brain function and improving mental health. We have 2 formulas. There's Mindful Mood. Mindful Mood is designed to decrease anxiety and enhance mood. And then Mind Shift. Mind Shift is blended to increase focus and optimize brain function. We have some sample packs. If you want to get a free sample pack, go to riseupsups.com. That's RISEUPS.com. Try before you buy, baby. Try before you buy.
There you go.
All right, Doc.
Well, for those of you that have listened to this podcast for quite some time, you'll recognize that we are in the midst of changing some sponsorship stuff. So next week we might have a completely different sponsor.
I'm going to have to learn all new lines.
Yeah, I know. We got all these things like just finally, after 107 episodes, like everything we say is pretty secondhand at this point, but now we got to learn some new stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm an old dog, so we can't teach old dogs new tricks.
You guys want to put a wager down about who's going to mess up the sponsorship next time?
Well,
2-3 months down the line, you're just going to say the wrong sponsor. It's a radio station thing. You move to a new radio station and you say the wrong station for the first week.
We'll do that. We'll for sure do that. Absolutely.
Whoever messes up has to buy me lunch.
Oh, see, you see how he came up with that?
Yeah, well, guess what?
He's
My
quick with
money's
it.
on Jared because he messes up even when he knows somebody's name. So
True. Like Cy?
yeah, Ty Hirsche.
Yeah, Ty
Okay,
Hirsche.
Ty
Cy Hirsche.
Ty Hirsche's a cool dude.
Forgiveness, bro. Future forgiveness. Listen, I don't
It's
know
all
if
good.
you know this about me, Cy, but back in the day, I did a lot of drugs.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm like functioning on like 3/4 of a brain.
Wow.
So please forgive me.
I'm impressed with the old production value. I'm impressed with everything. I mean, the lines that you did remember were amazing. So well done.
Well, thank you.
Well done.
I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
All
So
right,
we
should
always
we kick
start
it
off.
off?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you? I don't know what we're doing here.
Let's just start at the top like we always do.
All right.
So we like
you
to
want to do that, or you want me to do it?
Yeah, go ahead. A little positive psychology. You know where I'm going with
I
that?
don't know what that meant.
New and goods, baby.
I know.
Oh.
I know what's next. I just didn't know what it meant by
Positive
whether you
psychology?
wanted me to do it or you do it.
Go ahead. You.
Okay. Well, we always do new and goods, so I'm going to start it off by asking somebody what's new and good in their life, and I'm going to start with Jared Miller.
Oh my
What is new and
goodness.
good in the life of Jared Miller?
Listen. 2 days ago,
Uh-oh.
I went and heard
You
my
got
baby's heartbeat
Oh, that's right. You sent me that.
for the first time.
Yeah.
And listen, it was crazy because I left, right? You get in the hustle and bustle. I went to work and then, I had to meet Mandy at the doctor's office, and you just get caught up in like the hustle and bustle of things. And I'm like driving away and I'm sending my family the video of the heartbeat. And I can remember back to when I was living in a sober living house and I was riding the bus and I was working a janitorial job, and I would literally come home and lay in my bunk, put headphones on, and I would try to picture like what I wanted my life to look like. And as I'm driving back to my work, I had to pull the car over because I was bawling, dude.
Yeah.
Like just so much gratitude that today I have the life that I manifested back then, right? All those hours laying on that bunk, just visualizing if I get my poop in a group, what could my life look like? And so my heart was full. That's my new and good. I heard my baby's heartbeat for the first time.
That's about as new and good as you can get right there.
Save me before I start crying, Doc.
Yeah, you're all right. We allow crying on this show.
We encourage it. That's amazing.
That is amazing stuff. No one's going to outdo that new and good this week for sure. I'll tell you what I did when I heard the heartbeat. So I heard your baby's heartbeat because you sent it to me, right? So so first thing is I get out my stopwatch, right? And I tell my wife, I told my wife to time this, and then I started listening to the heartbeat, and I counted, so I'm thinking when I first heard it, I thought, that's a little slow. I'm not sure if that's the baby's heartbeat or mom's heartbeat. And so I had my wife time it while I counted, and it was about 128 beats a minute, which is not too slow at all. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've heard heartbeats for a living, but it's about 128. But then I'm thinking to myself, 120. So typical is somewhere around 140 for a baby. Sometimes slower means boys and faster means girls, or at least that's an old wives' tale. That's not really true at all. And so I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, that's a boy. Wait a sec, we already know it's a girl.
Yeah.
I forgot about that for a sec. But
yeah,
I'm going to use that for my new and good too. Your baby's heartbeat.
I like it.
I'm going to stop squeaking the cushion because Sean hears all that stuff that I do with my feet.
Every sound.
Sean, sorry we saved you for last, by the way.
New and great
Sean,
this week.
Sean, I'm going to go with Sean, and then
Okay,
we go to
okay.
you. Sean, what's new and good in the world of Sean Denovan, our producer?
My new and good is I get to hear what Cy's new and good is going to be.
Oh, that's just lovely, isn't it? Cy,
We call that
in your-
deflecting.
Yeah, that
In
is,
your
that is
life.
extremely deflective.
in your life, what's new and good this week?
Hey, doing this with you guys,
All
coming
right.
down, spending some time in St. George with the family, getting some golf in January is a big freaking deal. But I have a 9-month-old baby too, so I'm getting to spend time for my 22-year-old son's birthday down here with my 9-month-old baby. So it's kind of cool to have the whole range. And man, I can relate with your story and just the thought, a possibility of just maybe putting some consistency in life together to be able to do something like that, and so I commend it big time, man.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, we played golf on January 6th just now. Cy and I and his oldest son just played golf on January 6th in St. George, Utah. Last year we were storming the Capitol building on January 6th.
No, 2 years ago.
Oh, it was 2 years
It
ago.
was-
Holy
yeah.
mackerel. It's been so long since I stormed the Capitol, I can't even remember.
He was itching. He was itching again today too. It was weird. I
Was
got all
he?
the, yeah, it's-
He's
Let's
getting a
go.
little twitchy.
Let's go storm the Capitol. Yeah, that's what I do for a living. All right.
Oh,
Well,
there went the sponsors.
yeah, we don't have any sponsors anymore.
we just lost the other two, Doc.
We just picked up the. Oh,
I'm gonna need a
think
sponsorship
so.
that like somebody that does AC units. Like it's
What are you
winter
doing?
time.
Man,
and
why
I'm
are you
over
sweating?
I'm sweating.
You all
I
right?
shouldn't wear this sweater. I
You
told
look
you
good,
guys,
though.
I got short. I'm all business up top and like lounging down below. I got shorts on and in my house loafers. I had to kick the house loafers off because man, am I getting a guy hot in this?
I got 4 layers right here, and I'm not hot.
Oh my goodness.
yeah,
man.
I think you're going through menopause.
I might be.
Yeah, that's
Well,
true.
you are pregnant, so
Yeah, that's true. This is true. Maybe your hormones are off with your wife. All right, should we get this thing? Should we put this back on the track?
Yeah,
again?
listen, I'm super excited for today because I know that you and Cy have rapport.
We do. Cy and I have known each other for a long time.
a long time.
I'm glad that you're both in studio. I'm just gonna turn it over. Let you
All right.
guys rock and roll, baby.
All right, we're gonna start. We're gonna start from the start. So, Cy, I have known Cy since at least 2006. Let's start with. Tell us about Cy. Who are you? Where'd you grow up? Tell us about your sort of start from childhood.
Cool. Yeah, well, I'm Cy Hirsche, and I am a drug addict and alcoholic.
Yes, you are.
I was born in Boston, Massachusetts. Actually, my dad was in medical school out there at Harvard Medical, and kind of had that real early experience of living on the East Coast, and then moved out here to start a practice. My dad and Dr. Sellers knew my dad, but was a rock star plastic surgeon. Like he kind of changed the world and set my example of what a man should be in a lot of ways, and just did a lot of good things in this world. Started a foundation called Hirsche Smiles Foundation, and still is making a big difference nowadays today. But had a great childhood. Was one of 6 kids and 4 sisters and a brother, and grew up with, all the things that you want to grow up with. You know, you don't even really realize it when you're growing up, but when you're looking back and the affluence of just having stuff, not having to worry about eating and not having to worry about your next meal. And I used to, I tell the story a lot to my kids because I used to feel like I had such a strong work ethic, right? But then I'd look at it and I could sign for gas at a gas station, and I could sign for food at Ripples, and all these different places around town. And
So you had some privilege.
yeah, I mean, it was like, but to me, I'm like, I worked hard. I earned my first car, but I didn't have to pay for any gas, didn't have to pay for insurance, but had a great life, and really, I mean, there was stuff as kids, I had a super, overachieving dad and a really overachieving mom. Excuse me. And my mom, I think, really kind of came down on us kids a little bit just for the sake of not necessarily having the control of a really successful husband either, like he's out there working and doing his thing. And so she would really kind of latch down on us. And looking back, there was a lot of volatility in the house, a lot of volatility that we learned how to sweep under the rug real well and come out. And, we were Hirsches. We were Dr. Hirsche's kids, and we had to act cool.
Can I pause you for 1 sec? The counselor in me's coming out.
Yeah.
And I just want to take a minute and just point this out. Oftentimes when we have parents or we have, authority figures that are very successful, even if they don't mean to put pressure on their their kids, when you get to a certain age, you start to figure out life. What does your dad do? What does your mom do? Right. And there's this, once you start to relate, hey, my dad's a pretty big dude, right? Like in the world, he's a pretty successful guy.
Yeah.
And my mom's an amazing woman too. Like there is a certain amount of underlying pressure or expectation there, even if they don't say it. Yeah. Even if they're totally loving, it sounds like they were for you. They were accepting, loving, nurturing. There still is like a subconscious, like, how am I going to live up to this?
Yeah.
My dad's a big deal.
Yeah.
His dad was a big deal. So in the medical world, there's always, as in everything in life, right? There's a bit of a hierarchy, right? And obstetricians, which is what I was, are nowhere near the top of that, but they're also not at the bottom, right? The bottom of the hierarchy, and yet they're still physicians. Would be family practice doctors and pediatricians and that sort of stuff. And then the top hierarchy is going to be neurosurgeons and plastic surgeons and heart surgeons and orthopedic surgeons. Yeah. Those are the guys that are really at the top, right? Those are the guys that are these are the cool guys, right? An OB's not one of the cool guys, but he's not. I mean, I'm still a physician. Like I was kind of cool in Provo for a while. I knew a lot of people, but the top guys are like Sai's dad was the most well-known plastic surgeon in Utah County and maybe even Utah. I don't know that. And I hope my influence was Utah County, but
I hope I'm speaking for all of our listeners when I say just being a doctor is pretty dang successful cool. in and of itself, right? Yeah. So my question for you, Sai, is, was it just kind of that? Was it just kind of like you realized who you were, who your parents were, or was there kind of like, was the expectation stated from your parents?
No, you definitely knew there was something a little bit special about being a Hirsche, and it was definitely, and not necessarily that it was special, but within our family and within my parents, they definitely wanted us to carry ourselves in a different way, and there was that pressure for sure, and
the unspoken pressure,
but a lot of it was internal. It wasn't necessarily that they're kind of putting it on me. It was more or less like, shoot, I want to be a lot like my dad.
Yeah, my dad's a big deal.
And I want to be a lot like him, and I was second youngest. I had a younger sister that's amazing, and all my siblings are amazing, but a lot of my older siblings had some struggles with substance use and stuff. And growing up and watching it, all I wanted to do was just be the peacemaker. I just wanted everyone just to be happy. And I'm thinking, God, alcohol is the worst thing in the world. Like, alcohol is making my brother go to Provo Canyon Boys School when he's 16. And and I'm thinking, but now it's funny looking back hindsight, I go, I wonder if my parents were overreacting. Like maybe he wasn't partying that hard,
Right.
but they were just so hyper focused on the older siblings that we kind of were just the chosen ones. Like I remember my dad literally would take me on rounds and be like, he's gonna be another doctor. This is my favorite child. He literally would say that, which is crazy. Well, favorite son, not child. My sisters will kill me if they're listening to him. But
I like how he caught himself.
Yeah.
He
knows
got himself.
He knows he has to go home, and his sisters are there.
I have
right
great sisters, man, and they'll be listening for sure.
Yeah.
But and they're just but it was this expectation, and I had a good childhood. I really genuinely, and you hear a lot of people say this, like, oh shoot, I didn't have any trauma, I didn't have this, I didn't have that. I definitely had something. Something steered me in the ways that I've developed my coping mechanisms even to today. And I think a lot of it was just kind of that volatility of just not necessarily knowing what was going to happen with the older siblings, not knowing what, kind of all of a sudden they're just going to be out of the house sort of a thing. And my mom was amazing. My mom was a beautiful, amazing soul that was getting better and better with age. But she was about it, man. Like she was on it and she was about it and she did not let stuff slide. And she, like, we're up at 6 a.m. practicing piano. And I remember it would be cold and I'd be under the piano, like on the bent, like it's freezing at 6 a.m. And she'd come in like, why aren't you practicing? I'm freezing, but like she was on it and she knew what she expected. And there's so many lessons that she's taught me just from a gratitude and a politeness standpoint and just etiquette standpoint that's helped me so much in my life. But, there was obviously a lot of fear too, where I was, I developed early on that the simplest way to avoid consequence was to be dishonest, and so you roll the dice, you'd be dishonest and hope you get through. Sometimes you would, sometimes you wouldn't.
The quickest way to avoid consequences is to do what you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
But that wasn't.
No, that wasn't
not your path.
Well, in the end, I was like this, we were the young kids, like the older kids were causing all these problems and fighting. And so we weren't even really anything until high school. And the other kids kind of moved out. Then all of a sudden, I kind of shifted into the bad object around, and I know I'm going a little too long here.
You're not.
But
we're fine.
With heavy metal music, like I just dug it.
Oh, you like heavy metal?
I loved.
You like Dio?
I love Dio, man.
I know.
Love it. And I'd wear heavy metal shirts, and I wanted to like shed any sort of
Hirshiness.
Yeah, any influence. I wanted to be but I was a really good athlete too. I was kicking butt in athletics, but I still was like, screw it, and then I'd come home and she'd have all my stuff thrown away and I'd be pissed about it.
You talked about coping skills. You mentioned that lying was one of them. Mm-hmm. The heavy metal was one of them. Mm-hmm. Sports was one of them. Mm-hmm. What are you're on a podcast about recovery from addiction. What maybe were some of the other coping skills you leaned into?
Well, so that was the kind of interesting point of my story, right? Is everything's going well, and I have an older brother. I end up going up to Utah State. My older brother's already up there. He's part of this party atmosphere. Mm-hmm. But I didn't use one illicit substance, alcohol in high school whatsoever, because I'm like, my mom will kill me.
Really?
Literally. And I remember getting up to Logan, and I remember the first couple weeks going,
Mom's not here.
She can't find out.
Mom's not here.
Exactly. And
stinking thinking.
Yeah. And I dove right into it. And it was so interesting to me because my brother was super smart. He was in the PhD program. He was like teaching me classes. He was like one of my associate professors and stuff. And he would party hard. And he'd get up and go to class the next day. I'd party hard and I'd be a wreck. And I wouldn't do so well in school. And so I quickly kind of learned that I was, I needed to transfer back home and come back down to BYU, and dove into, and in that time I developed a pretty heavy opiate problem. So that was a coping mechanism after a surgery from an ankle surgery. And it was pretty gnarly.
Opiates tend to lock on and not let go.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. Mm-hmm. And so then I came back home and, met my first wife. I'm 20 years old, going through the predominant religion aspect of it and having my first kid, and I kind of put substances away for a little bit, but that still the wanting to be something that maybe I wasn't, and I even with my first wife, I'd talk a lot about being a doctor when I had no real intentions or smarts to be a doctor, or even to be able to go to, to accomplish it in school or even think about accomplishing it. But we, started kind of going through life. My parents died in a plane crash coming back from St. George in 2002.
Whoa, hold on. You just flippantly mentioned that like it's no event in your life.
No, it's a big event.
Yeah.
It's an event that shapes me.
Your dad owned his own plane. He was
Yeah.
a pilot, had a pilot's license.
Yep. And yeah, this is an addiction podcast, but it shapes me, and I still don't know why it shapes me so severely, because it's been 20 years now, and even just talking about it right now, it shakes me.
Yeah, I can see your lip quivering, your eyes are a little watered up.
It's brutal. And we came down here, and me and my son and my wife, and so quick story. My son and my wife and my mom were already down here. They had a place, and me and my dad and 2 Guatemalan kids and 2 Guatemalan kids' parents, because some of these kids would need additional surgery, so they'd come up and get secondary surgeries, and he wanted to show them Zions in southern Utah. And so
We're talking about kids that were treated through the foundation.
Yeah.
Called Hirsche Smiles, and he used to go down and operate on kids in foreign countries.
Yeah.
With like cleft palates.
With cleft
Yep,
palates
cleft
and
palates,
that sort of
cleft
stuff. Yep.
And so, and I'm working, I'm smashing it financially at this point. I have a software company that's doing really well and feeling competent in life. And there's no way I'm going down on a Wednesday. I'm going to fly down with my dad on a Friday after work. And we fly down and have an amazing weekend. We go to Zion's, and I'm getting ready to fly back. I remember I had a meeting in Sacramento or something that I had to fly out for the next day. And so I'm telling my wife, like, hey, I'm going to fly. And I had my pilot's license too, or I was working on it. And so I'm doing the pre-check and pre-flight with my dad. And we open it up for me, my son, my mom and dad. And then my wife is like, I'm going to have to drive home with these Guatemalan people that I don't speak Spanish. Like, this is going to be weird. And she's giving me all this crap about it. We don't swear on here, do we? I don't swear. Anyways.
Well, when we do, Sean bleeps it out.
Okay.
So
It does go on the local radio.
So we try not to.
Okay. But she's giving me crap like, dude, and I'm pouting. And I'm like, I have to work early in the morning and this will save me, blah, blah, blah. And my mom's like, what are you doing? Like, come here, give me a hug and kiss and go take care of your wife, I'm like, oh my gosh, I give her a hug. And then my mom even said this. She's like, you never know when you're going to see each other again. And make sure you have a good impression. So hop off plane, take my son off the plane. We drive home. Big snowstorm in Nephi, and heart drops. You're just like, oh, something bad's happened, And then,
So you felt it before you knew.
yeah.
Really?
Well, initially you're like, they probably made it through here a little bit sooner. And I checked the weather. There was no weather. It was a weird day. It was November 24th, and it was really warm November. But you hit it like a wall. And then flight control's calling me because I had opened the flight plan, and that wasn't completely unusual. My dad would sometimes forget to close the flight plan, but long story short, I lost my parents that day, and it shook me in a way that I still struggle with. I still often go, I do not feel prepared for life without parents. And it's funny, I'm 46 years old.
It also sounds like you got maybe some survivor's guilt. I don't know if that fits.
Oh, yeah,
but
totally.
Yeah.
Like, there's zero doubt in my mind that if I'm on that plane and we have another set of pilot eyes, we don't fly through that storm. There's zero doubt. And but I've been through treatment, and I've worked through a lot of that to some extent, but it still hurts.
Sorry, I totally get it, right? I came on and talked about my 8 years and bawled like a baby talking about my dad, so I get it. We're going to come right back to Cy after this little 30-second word from our sponsors. We appreciate Cy for being vulnerable, man. Excited to get back to it.
You are listening to We Do Recover with Jared Miller and co-hosted by Dr. Terry Sellers. We'll be right back after this short break with more of We Do Recover with Jared Miller, sponsored by Steps Recovery Center and the Hilton Garden Inn.
I'm Desmond Lomax, one of the clinical executives here at Steps Recovery, and once you become of the Steps family, you're just a part of the Steps family. A lot of us have overcome substances, overcome addiction, and now we're able to help other people. Second of all, we're also going to help you in a way where you can afford to be helped. Third of all, we're going to give you the same quality that many organizations are charging 2 to 3 times, and it's more about you than it is about our organization.
We welcome you back to We Do Recover with Jared Miller, co-hosted by Dr. Terry Sellers. Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn. And now with part 2 of our podcast, Jared Miller and Dr. Terry Sellers.
Welcome back, everybody. Part 2, episode 107 with Cy Hirsche. And we have just gotten to the point in Cy's story where his parents lost their lives in a plane crash. I don't know if everybody totally caught that, but their plane didn't make it through a storm. But before we get back to that story, because that had such a profound influence on Cy's life, but before we get back to that, we got to mention Hilton Garden Inn is our sponsor for segment 2 of episode 107, and the Hilton Garden Inn is down here in St. George, greatest hotel ever. And if you're happen to be traveling through this part of the country, if you're in southern Utah, look them up. Hilton Garden Inn, type it in on a Google search and give them a shot at your business. They have the greatest amenities. Hilton Garden Inn's always clean, fresh. Staff is always kind and always helpful to me. And their pool and their hot tub are amazing too, by the way. We mention that a lot because
Shout out to Estefania. She's always so fantastic when it comes to like booking our stuff and getting our guests that need a hotel room and getting you lined up. And
super
Estefania, love
great.
you, girl.
Yeah, she's great. Absolutely.
Chris, pay that lady more.
Yeah.
She needs a raise.
Yeah, pay her. Okay. So back to Cy's story. So Cy's just lost his parents. What's your reaction to that? What do you do in life when that happens?
It was a struggle. It really was. And it's interesting to just even reflect. And I've obviously told this story often, but you know, I consciously remember going, shoot, you know, I'm not feeling good. I'm depressed. I'm you know, what would be really cool right now is opiates. You know, I'd really like, you know, that experience of just kind of checking out with opiates, but I'm like, oh, that was a pretty hairy situation and I don't want to dive right back into that. But people drink all the time. You know, and I travel for work and I can drink and I can do this. And I'll tell you what, drinking, you know, brought me to my knees quicker than anything. Like, talk about, you know, and just dishonesty with the wife. So my wife had no real experience with me with any sort of substance abuse. And so she's bearing down and, you know, so then I'm drinking at work and then I'm drinking on the road and then I'm getting DUIs. And then this is where I actually met Sellers. I'm getting detox, and this is way back before they even medically detox. Like they put you in Pace and Pavilion, remember, and give you comfort meds or whatever, but they weren't going to give you Ativan or anything like that. And you and Mike Jorgensen come walking in, and you knew my dad, and I knew Mike for somehow, and they're like, "You got to come to our new treatment center, Steps," and it was brand new. Brand new. Sorry, this thing's moving.
Is that back in the day that you were the medical director, the front office manager, the clinical director, the head nurse, the admissions guy, the frontline
I was a few
psych tech?
He was everything. He was everything. And I told him, no. Well, remember why I told you no? Because I wanted to chew tobacco. And they're like, nope, we don't do chew tobacco. So I'm like, I'm not going.
We elected at that time when Steps first opened, and I haven't worked for Steps for a long time, so I don't know where they are now. But we elected to not allow tobacco, and there's a reason for it. Like there is medical evidence that people that quit tobacco at the same time that they quit drugs and alcohol have a better chance of staying clean and sober. And so we thought, well, let's not. And then the owner at the time wanted us to be a tobacco-free thing, regardless of the medical evidence, anyway. So,
So
we
I can
didn't
speak-
allow tobacco, and so Cy's like, that ain't happening.
Being a former employee of Steps,
Okay.
as of a week ago, I can say that they do now allow tobacco,
Okay.
right? Around
Right.
scheduled time breaks,
Well, listen, I've
which
been
most places do these days.
This is not necessarily to speak to Cy's story because we're well into this, but I've worked for a lot of places, and that's a battle.
Yeah.
That is a battle for people.
was for Cy.
Well,
Well, it's a battle for staff. I've worked for multiple places too that have it or don't have it, and the ones that don't have it, a lot of your clinical experience is around cigarettes.
no question.
It's around so and so snuck a cigarette or so and so did this and blah blah blah. And
We've been open what? At Steps we opened in 2006 or 7. 2006 or 7.
Six,
Do you remember
I
when you
think.
went? 2006. We've been open 2 or 3 months. Size there.
yeah.
So you did end up going.
No, I said no. But then I get a couple DUIs and I'm in jail and they come and I'm like, yes, I will go. And I'm sorry. This is messing with me bad, but my hair.
Your hair's lovely. Don't worry about it. Most people listen. Very few people actually watch.
But yeah, so then they come to Utah County Jail. And I'm like, yes, I will go. And we'll wrap
Because
this
guess
up.
where they don't give you tobacco?
Yeah, there.
Utah County Jail.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
and guess,
and you don't
guess
even
where you
get to
don't
argue.
want to be in Utah County Jail.
Right.
So I get out. We go through the experience, and we're all learning as we go. Doc's learning as we go.
I'm a clinical director that I shouldn't have ever been and that I'd never been before. So yeah, I was new in this
And
gig.
Doc's loving me. Like he's literally just covering me with good, positive things and doing everything he can to kind of point me in the right direction. What am I doing? I'm chewing every chance I get. and Doc
So we took a
kicks me out of here.
We took a trip as a group. We had one of our clients that had a fairly wealthy father who owned a few condos down here in St. George. And as a treatment center, we took a trip from Payson to St. George and took all the clients. We had 3 condos, and they were like 3-bedroom condos. They were pretty decent places, right? So we took this long trip, and we loaded everybody in a van, and then the owner and I got in his BMW, and we drove down, and then we made one of the techs handle all the clients. And we get down here, and we're down here, and I discover that Cy's got a thing of chew while we're down here.
Nice.
And I listen, a brand new clinical director, right? You're not supposed to play favorites. I did. I was new. I hadn't really been formally trained as a therapist or a clinical director or anything like that. And I kind of took a liking to Cy, and I found out he had chew, and I lost it. We sent all the clients home. I kicked Cy out of treatment for tobacco. It was.
So let me.
I've never seen Doc more angry
I
in my
was so-
entire life.
Listen,
I
I
was
realize
so
it's
mad.
a behavior thing, but let me just tell you what I heard as a substance abuse counselor.
Yeah.
We took a dude that has a substance abuse problem.
Right.
Found out that he was sneaking
That
a
he had-
substance
right.
and kicked
And
him
we
out
got-
of a substance
right,
abuse center. Like that's just right. But I get it. Back then it was a different day. We've come a ways, and there's some behavior stuff in there, but it just.
Let me explain.
And I'm sure Cy was the first
about
person in the history of treatment centers to ever sneak some
Right.
tobacco,
Right.
right? We can laugh about it now,
Well, the
right?
thing is, we were like the first people. Like
You were among the first group in
besides
that treatment center.
and I don't know if we're supposed to say names of treatment centers.
Yeah, we
or whatever.
can. It's totally
But
fine.
besides, like
We do what we
it was
want.
it. Like I was client 4.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I mean, and the other people that we're talking about they're great people in the recovery world right now too, but we were all doing it, you know. And, I mean, but we were just trying to figure it out. Like we just didn't know which way was up, you know. And my treatment experiences were funny because I started at the Circ Lodge situation, and I'll never forget them. And it was all cash pay back then. There was no insurance. There was no Affordable Care Act, and it was just big money, you know. And I just remember treatment experience started at like Circ, then I'd get a DUI, then I'd go to Steps, then I'd get a kicked out. I did great at Circ because they could smoke.
Yeah, sure.
The bouginess
The
scale.
bougie, yeah. Next thing I know,
went down
I'm at Odyssey House going, oh my gosh. And
It's a Medicaid facility. Yeah.
Then I'm in prison.
So you went from probably the bougiest, like, right, like Hollywood sends the elite
Yep.
to Cirque, to like Steps, which is it's still really nice, right?
Yeah.
To like basically a jail referral program, which Odyssey House does great stuff. I'm not knocking
Which
Odyssey
was
House.
actually probably the most effective one.
I was just
for
going to
me.
say, but I
Yeah.
bet that's what you needed.
Yeah. What I ultimately needed was prison. You know, I this is a super lucky kid that had all these opportunities in life. Literally walked through the doors of the Utah State Prison. I remember Judge Claudia Laycock was a great friend of my dad's, and she asked herself if she should recuse herself because she was such a good friend. And I'm thinking, no, this is a positive, and like she's gonna have leniency on me. And by that third DUI, she goes, "Hey, if I see you again, you're going to prison." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, cool, I got you." And I see her, and she's like, I go to prison, and she says, "You'll be there 7-8 months," and I was there 20 months. Like she had no idea. Like she has no control over the parole board or anything like that.
Right.
But I get into prison. They counted me out down in Beaver County, and
Was prison just for another DUI?
yeah, felony DUI, and then I had a protective order with my
Okay.
it was my wife at the time.
Right.
So it sounds like your substance abuse cost you a marriage.
Oh, it was brutal.
We have that in common.
It was brutal. It was literally like constant me lying, her confronting, me wanting to leave to drink. Then she would call the police because I'm drinking and driving, and I get it.
The unmanageability of
it
the
was-
powerlessness.
Yeah, it was huge, and she didn't know what to do either. Sure. She's doing the best that she could with the situation, but get into what's called the BRT, which is the Beaver Residential Treatment Center, and start going, man, I'm pretty good at this. Not good at treatment, but I'm good at inspiring hope and change.
Was that, can I pause just for 1 sec? Because
Yeah.
there's oftentimes some of the most impactful moments of our lives are our oh shiz moments, right? Like our oh crap moments. When you got sentenced to prison,
Yeah.
this kid that came from luxury, that came from privilege. I mean, you said you'd go to places and just sign your name. You didn't even have to pay, right?
Yep.
Was there a point where you were like, okay, like enough? Was that like your oh crap moment? Or no, still not?
No, I mean, that was it. You literally have a moment when you walk through there and you go, is this something I'm okay with? Is this something that I'm just going to be okay with throughout my life, and I'm going to do it? Because there's so many people in there that just are okay with it. Or am I going to not? Or
That was a very sobering moment for you.
it was huge, and it was a moment where I got to walk with my head held high, proud of the person that I was trying to be, and people respected it. Law enforcement respected it, inmates respected it, and we created a really cool program in there that helped a ton of people. And it was, but I stood out like a sore thumb. I remember my very first cellie, and you went to one or whatever, which is like death row. It really was. I was a pod worker on death row, and first cellie's like, "Hey, they call me Shotgun." And I'm like, "Who's they?" And like, they call me Shotgun. I'm like, so you want me to call you Shotgun? Is that they're like, what do they call you? I'm like, I don't know, Cy, and and it's like, you're either okay with it or you're not. And I was not okay with it. And I spent every minute in that place trying to improve myself mentally, physically, spiritually, every day. And I tried to be a really good example to a lot of other people. And I feel like they've made that, there has been a pretty big ripple effect with that. But then you fast forward and you get out of treatment or get out of prison. And I had this strong desire to disprove what a convict looks like. Disprove what this is all about and disprove what I'm capable of. But, I had to start at the bottom. I had to start as a residential tech at Cirque Lodge, and then I moved up into a client liaison, and then I moved up into further, and I've had a really successful career in the recovery world for the last 12 years. And I was just looking at my invoices because I just did a intervention. I do interventions, but I've done over 400 interventions in the last 10 years. And I don't say that to brag, but it's like I've gotten to the point where I've gotten to help a lot of people. And I literally do it with one goal in mind: to inspire hope and change. And my life's far from perfect. I've gone through a divorce. I've relapsed after long-term recovery. I've come back from that. I think we titled this "The Comeback Kid." I'm sorry about the headphones, but the comeback kid. But it's like, I've built beautiful lives and I burnt it down still, even in this, sense of recovery and sense of beauty and all these positive things. And I look at my situation right now and it's beautiful, but life's hard. Anyone that tells you life's easy is lying. Like, life is hard and there's a lot of things that go into it. But the fact of the matter that I've really, really found, and I hope to share with as many people that will listen, is purpose. Value and purpose is what helps us withstand the deaths. It helps us withstand the friends relapsing, us relapsing, whatever it looks like. If we have purpose and value, and that's something Doc showed me forever. He came into a situation and found his purpose, and he's followed his purpose, and it hasn't been easy and it hasn't been perfect all the way, but you've helped so many people. Like, you've stood by my side for decades now, and I know I can call you with anything, and I'd hope vice versa. And it's like, that's what recovery is. I think we do get caught up a little bit in counting days and stuff around that. And I understand the significance of that, but I look at recovery, it's not a linear start finish sort of thing. Like, it's a process.
It's like climbing a mountain. There's
Yep.
going to be plateaus. There's going to be spaces where you're on an inhill climb. There's going to be, it's like you said, it's not a straight line.
Yeah.
I don't believe so either.
Yeah.
Purpose, though, I love that.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like, I'm going to backtrack for a minute here. We got enough time.
Sure.
Sounds like you found purpose when you got countied out, because you started a program in Beaver when you got countied out to Beaver County Jail. When you left there, did you know that this was kind of like your jam?
I knew it was something I really wanted
Like
to do.
this as in recovery, working in the field of recovery, helping other people that were behind you make it.
Yeah. I knew it was something I really wanted to do. I wasn't sure where that direction was. A lot of people are like, oh, you got to, get a little bit more education and, get a little bit more this. For me, it was, I like the front end aspect of it. I like the business development aspect of it, but I wasn't sure, I remember literally just looking when I'm just a frontline tech, looking at like the admissions guys going, God, I wish I could do that. I wish I could be receiving these calls to help people while in crisis. And, I managed to do that. I managed to be a director at multiple different treatment centers and haven't loved every minute of it, but I've loved a lot of it.
How many years ago since you left the Beaver County Jail has it been?
2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's that, Doc? 12? Coming up on 12?
Yeah.
So in 12 years, you've gone from being, what, is it not 12? It's 11? What is it?
It's 11, 12.
It's okay.
Fine.
It's fine.
Totally fine. It's
You've
funny
gone-
that you just turned to me for math. That was weird.
Listen, he's a hero to me too. I got to, every once in a while, I know it's the last time we do this podcast. After I say something, I always turn to get validation from Doc. Like, I need his approval, right? So I get it when you say that he's a pillar for you too. You
guys don't need my approval.
You've gone
You guys are
from
doing fine.
being a tech to over 400 interventions.
Yeah.
And you own a intervention company. Like, what does that look like? How did you get involved in doing interventions? Because that's quite a ways from being a psych tech.
Yeah. I mean, there's training. Intervention's a weird, wild, wild west out there. like you get certifications and credentials and whatnot. And I did the Arise method. I've done the Plan method, and now I actually kind of teach the Hirsche method. But hasn't been my primary thing. Like typically I'm a marketing or business development director at a treatment center that we've all heard of at some point. But how did I get there? I just kept trying to help people.
Yeah,
And it's funny because I'm working at Cirque and I'm kind of moving through that process. And then I remember I got a job at another place called Maple Mountain as their business development director. And I remember sitting in my first meeting and they're talking like VOBs and they're talking this lingo of admissions. And I'm like, I don't know what any of this is. And I get home and I'm Googling it like, oh, verification of benefits and oh, this insurance. Cause I'd never worked with insurance once at Cirque. And, but it's like this process of just trying to show up. Like it's, there really is a magic and an art to just showing up and putting good, positive intentions out to just help people in need, help people that were just like me, just like you. Mm-hmm. And 99.9% of the time, if we treat them like the way we wanted to be treated, they'll respond, and is it always lasting? No, and that's the hardest part of this business sometimes is just the struggles of the people that you really care about. But, it's so worth it for the one.
That's a part that to me is a little bit difficult, is to watch people that have potential, to watch them sort of continue to struggle. You and I and you and we all have friends that are dead.
Yeah.
We all have people that we know that we care about that have not made it through the disease, that die. And so when somebody, struggles, it's just, that's hard. It's hard because, man, this is deadly stuff sometimes.
It makes you angry when,
Yes.
You get somebody in treatment and they're doing really well and you have high expectations and high hopes and you plan a really fun trip and then you find out that they're smuggling some chew
Made me
on the
angry.
trip. That would irritate me. You're
Made me
right.
angry.
Like,
I want to go back to that right now. Thank you for bringing that up, because I want to go back to that, because first of all, it took me a minute to realize this, and you brought this up, and it's completely true, right? People come to you, and this is what happens in treatment still to this day. People come to you for help with substance abuse, and then they forget tobacco for a second. They somehow sneak some heroin into the treatment center and use heroin. Mm. And then you kick them out. Mm-hmm. I'm like, wait a sec. You brought them in for this problem. I've come a ways on this, I promise. I'm no longer in favor of kicking people out of treatment who use during treatment, unless, of course, they harm someone else or bring someone else down with them. But, I don't kick people out that use in treatment anymore. I just am not about that. I was with a fairly hardline, old school AA kind of guy that was the owner of the treatment center at the time, who was that way. Sorry, we don't put up with any of that crap. And so that's why we booted somebody out that used tobacco. But I wouldn't do that today. I've come a long ways on that, because people come to you for help with something, and then somehow they do the behavior they came to you for help with, and you punish them.
Yeah.
Wait a sec. We're supposed to teach them how not to do that, not punish them when they do, because that's what they do naturally.
and we could dial the scope in on that and take a look at it for a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different ways. Right, like you obviously got to protect the milieu
For
if they're
sure.
sharing,
Right.
if they're
Right.
Like you've got to take that stuff into consideration.
And that's
so
my
the
line.
level of care absolutely matters for
That's
sure.
my line right now, is if people share it and harm other people's recovery, then they probably have to leave.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't share this on here, but typically if I have a client that comes to me and they've relapsed, they're expecting, they've catastrophized for days.
Right,
and,
they're getting kicked out for sure.
and when I sit across
In
from
their
them
mind.
and I look them in the face and I say, well, what did that fix?
Yeah.
What did that cure? How did that help?
And what did you learn?
What did you learn? What did that do for you?
Right.
And literally they're like, okay, so
My bags
Am I
are
That's
supposed to pack
it.
packing my
right?
stuff?
It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, no, dude, I never condone a relapse, but at the same time, to ostracize somebody, I think is wrong.
Yeah.
To Dr. Seller's point,
Yeah.
they've come for you. They've come to you because of the behavior. You've got to have some bandwidth to be able to deal.
I for sure would handle that situation differently today.
It's fun to tease you about it, though.
Oh, it's
It's fun to tease myself about it. Like, what the heck? I got really mad. Like, I was fuming mad.
You was mad.
I've known Cy for 15 years. He's never seen me madder.
No,
I've never been
not
that
even
mad.
close.
Right. I was
Like, he was like ready to. He was mad.
yeah. And I'm like 20 years older than him. Like, I'm standing face to face, like I'm gonna mess him up. Like, the guy could just cream me any time, any day, right? I'm an old fat guy, but I'm acting like I'm gonna pummel him into the ground or
The
something.
point was taken, though. I mean, there's a fact. I mean, I totally understand and I totally agree with. Hey, you got to protect the milieu. You gotta, not punish the addict for doing addict behaviors and stuff along those lines. But it's like I'm the opposite. I'm like, I'm always fighting with clinical about trying to treat more and more and more people. So it's like I get from the clinical standpoint, you guys are dealing with all sorts of crazy.
Yeah, true.
Sometimes I feel like clinical wants to help healthy people because they aren't. There's so many barriers of it. But it's like in that situation, you were doing the best that you could, and you felt personally insulted because it was a personal insult because of the way our relationship that we had.
Right.
It was.
That's
it was.
the part it's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be personal. But
With
you're
about
right.
45
It was.
seconds left, Si,
Yeah,
what's
we're about
the
out of
message you want to give to the person struggling in early recovery?
Thank you.
Just, I mean, I love this question, and I never necessarily know what to say, but to keep showing up. Literally, I mean, it's so cliche, and there's so many things that we say around that, but just, you do matter. It is possible. The change is possible. I'm living, walking proof of it.
We're about out of time.
Beautiful. Thank you, Si. I appreciate you coming on.
Cy Hirsche,
Yeah.
still kicking, still
Barely.
doing it.
Let's go.
I love it. Let's play some golf tomorrow. How about that?
Let's do it.
All right,
You know
thanks
it.
everybody. Episode 107. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us today on We Do Recover with Jared Miller.
Help us spread our message of hope. Like, comment, and share.
If you have any topics or ideas for future shows, please share that on our Facebook page.
That Facebook page is We Do Recover with Jared Miller. If you or a loved one needs help, please reach out to us. Again, thank you for listening. Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn. This has been a production from A Podcast Studio.